Hi everybody, welcome to the Steckline Report. USDA tells us finally, now that they're back in business, how many bushels of corn and how many acres we're harvesting. Soybeans as well, and they even updated the wheat situation just a little bit in their crop production report. I'm going to talk about that, plus a guy's out stumping for agriculture. His name is President Obama. I'm going to talk about that too. Stand by.
I first got started in the cattle business. My wife and my father-in-law got me into it. I love dealing with the animals and being in the outdoors. At American Ag Credit, I know a lot of them are in the same business that I am. Therefore they understand what I need and what problems I'm against, so they can work with you on it, and it makes it much easier.
It's been passed down to me through the generations, and I want to pass it on down to the next generation or two.
For over 8 decades, America's farmers have counted on the little red tractor from Case IH, the Farmall, to help them make short work of their demanding chores. Well, Straub International can show you they aren't just for farms anymore. With horse ranging from 30 to 140, plus an army of attachments, a Farmall can tackle every chore on your to-do list, from hauling and mowing to loading and towing, and then some. Visit Straub International, your Case IH dealer at any of our 7 locations, to find a Farmall that's right for you.
Well, friends, we're going to grow a lot of grain. There isn't any doubt about that. Rain makes grain, and we talked about that from the time it was raining too much this spring when we planted. And every time that we talk about too much water, we get a big crop. So I'm kind of not too excited about talking about the late plantings and all of that. Now, I suppose there's an instance or two where it does bother the yields, but most of the time it's the other way around. Case in point, USDA now tells us that we're going to have a soybean crop of just a little over 3.25 billion bushels. Folks, that's up another 3% from just a month ago. The national average soybean yield, they say, will be 43 bushels an acre. That's kind of in line with what the trade was guessing, so it wasn't a big detriment to the market. Over on the corn side of the ledger, they pegged 13.989 billion bushels for the crop, right at 14 billion bushel crop. A national average of 160.4. That's up 5.1 bushels an acre since their last report 30 days or so ago. All of that means more grain and less price. However, I think they've taken that into consideration prior to this report coming out on the Board of Trade for the most part. We'll talk about that in a minute. Also, corn harvested acreage, they cut it by 1.9 million acres. That helped out a little bit, a decline of about 2%. They trimmed soybean harvested acreage by 75.69 million acres, a decline of about 700,000 from a month ago. So corn ending stocks came in below the range of trade expectations, largely due to the USDA boosting feed usage and exports. They boosted both of them, so that feels good. Soybean ending stocks at 170 million bushels came in toward the low end of projections too. They revised domestic crushings by 30 million bushels and exports by 80 million, trimming 6 million from the residual use category. So all in all, that report was a pretty neutral kind of a report. They did tell us a little bit about wheat and jostle some numbers around there too. USDA increased all wheat production for this year, 16 million bushels. I don't know where they found that. Somebody must have had some in the backyard or something that they didn't count last month because the grain is all harvested. In any event, they did expect that we would feed 30 million bushels more of wheat to livestock, so that helped offset that increase of 16 million bushels. And exports, they didn't change at all, left it pretty much the same. Excuse me, global ending stocks increased for both new and old crop wheat. So that was a little bit of a problem. And of course, we all know, we have some Canadian friends that told us what the wheat looks like up there as they were cutting it. Great crop, and they increased their production. USDA did just a little. Well, we've got a guy out stumping for agriculture. Doesn't happen very often that the President of the United States even mentions the word farm. But boy, Obama did last week. He was in New Orleans at the port speaking to a group of people, and he says, helping American businesses grow, creating more jobs is a Democratic and Republican priority. And he says, number one, for him, Congress needs to pass a farm bill that helps rural communities grow and protects vulnerable Americans, and says it'll increase business at the port where he was speaking. and of course, making the people there feel pretty good about his speech. Obama listed immigration reform as number 2 and a responsible budget as number 3, but his top priority, getting a farm bill passed. Wow, that's quite a deal. By the way, speaking of the farm bill, it did have, I'm reading between the lines every chance I get, it prohibits, there's something in this new farm bill that prohibits the government from disclosing information about farms and employees that EPA did supposedly mistakenly a few months ago. I hope that stays in there. Then there would be something at least good about that farm bill. Stay tuned, we'll talk about it when they talk about it in Washington. They better do it in the next 2 weeks. See you then.